Hello and welcome. Today we are looking at project scope management. Several factors account for the success of projects, and some of these include user involvement, clear business objectives, a clearly defined scope, and firm basic requirements, and basically understanding project scope management. And so that's what we are going to look at today. And so at the end of this slide, you should be able to understand the elements that make good project scope management important, explain the collect requirements process, discuss the scope definition process and work involved in constructing a work breakdown structure. Very important. Explain the importance of scope verification and how it relates to definition and control, and understand the importance of scope control. Now question, what is scope management? Now in the process of defining what is required and making sure all of that work and only that work is done. So as a project manager, you have to make sure that you understand what is required of you on the project and do only what you're required to do. Scope refers to all the work involved in creating the products of the projects and the processes used to create them. In the project context, the term scope can refer to what we call the product scope. Okay, we got your product, and this means the features and functions that characterize the product, a service, or results. Okay, that is the scope in the contents of products. And then we have the project scope that refers to the work that needs to be accomplished to deliver a product, service, or result with the specified features and functions. So we have the product scope, okay, talking about the features and functions that characterize whatever needs to be developed in the project. And in the project scope, talking about what needs to be done, how much work needs to be done to deliver what is expected. Now the scope management process includes collecting requirements. Of course, you must know what is required of you as a project manager. Then after you've collected the requirements, you must define the scope. After having defined the scope, you then create what we call the WBS, work breakdown structure. Then you verify the scope, and finally you control the scope. Now let's look at requirements collection. Now requirements are what stakeholders need from a product or a project. Okay, so those are the requirements, what they expect from the project. Now to collect requirements, there's a need to know who the stakeholders are. So it's very, very important, stakeholder identification, to know who the stakeholders are on the project. Very, very important. Okay, and once the stakeholders are known, then there must be a way to get them to give their requirements. And several techniques can be used to elicit these requirements. You could use interviewing, focus groups, facilitated workshops, brainstorming, nominal group technique, Delphi or Delphi technique, mind maps, and affiliative graphs, diagrams. So these are some techniques that you, the project manager and the project team, could employ to be able to get the requirements from the identified stakeholders. Now, once these requirements have been collected and finalized, then they are documented. Once they are collected and finalized, they are then documented. What is scope definition then? Now, it's very important to have a good scope definition. Now, after the requirements collection process, we have what we call the requirement documentation. And so scope definition process uses the requirements documentation that was created in the requirements collection process. It also uses the project charter and any information about risks and assumptions and constraints to define what we call the project scope and the product scope. Okay, so before you can define the scope of a project, you have collected all the requirements from all the relevant stakeholders. You have had a project charter and also have looked at any risks or assumptions or constraints there are to properly define the scope of a project. Now, the primary result or output of the scope definition process is the project scope statement. Project scope statement. Now, after creating a project scope statement, the next is to create what we call the WBS, or the work breakdown structure. Now, is the foundation of the project, because from WBS you're going to then get all the activities that make up the project and all your estimation, time estimates and cost estimates and the budget and everything will be based on the WBS. That's how come we say it's the foundation of the project. What's the WBS? It's a deliverable oriented hierarchical decomposition of the work to be executed by the project team to accomplish the project objectives. So before you can arrive at the WBS, assumption is that you've understood what the project stands for, what the clients or what the stakeholders want. Okay, those things are clearly defined, and so you pick these and then try to find out or break them down, okay, into smaller pieces so that you have an idea of the work that needs to be carried out to accomplish the objectives set for the project. Now, planned work is contained within the lowest WBS components, which are called the work packages. So the work packages, if you look at the WBS, the hierarchy of the WBS, which is like an inverted tree, the lowest level WBS components are what we call the work packages. Now again, we have what we call the WBS dictionary that provides a description of the work to be done for each WBS work package. So together at the work package level, we have what we call the WBS dictionary. So if you take each work package, it's a dictionary that contains a description of the work to be done, okay, for each WBS package. Now this is an example of WBS. So you can see here there's a project. Then we have the project broken down into the first level, phase 1, phase 2, deliverable 3, sub-project 4, sub-project N. So, and again, if you look at, this is just an example or something, okay? If you look at the phase 2, for example, phase 2 has been broken down into deliverable 2.1, 2.2, and deliverable 2.3. Okay, it's a hierarchical decomposition, so as you go down, you break it down further. Now, if you look at deliverable 2.2, you see you have deliverable 2.2.1, deliverable 2.2.2. Okay, and then if you take a deliverable here, we have work package. Okay, that's the lowest level of the WBS. So here we have work package 2.1.1, work package 2.1.2, and work package 2.1.3. So associated with each work package will be a WBS dictionary describing, okay, what needs to be done at that level. Now we have the scope verification. This involves reviewing deliverables with a customer or the sponsor. And acceptance of this is often achieved by a customer or sponsor inspection, and then sign off on key deliverables. Okay, so the scope will have to be verified, and this usually involves a customer or the sponsor reviewing the deliverables and accepting, okay, these by signing off. And the main inputs for scope verification are, again, the project management plan, very, very important. Then we have the requirements documentation. Remember, requirement documentation was listed during the requirement collection process. Then we have the requirement traceability matrix. Okay, this helps us trace, okay, any issues that may come up in the scope verification. Then we have the validated deliverables. Okay, these are deliverables that have been validated by the client. Now the main tool for scope verification is inspection. Okay, and this inspection usually be done by the customer or the sponsor. And the main outputs of scope verification are the accepted deliverables, and if there are any change requests, okay, That could be, and because the change request may be coming out because during the inspection phase, during the inspection process, okay, the client was not happy with something that was done, and so may request that change be done, or even within the team itself, you've understood the project better, or you made a mistake, you realize that there was a mistake somewhere, and so there could be a change request. So that could be an output, okay, in scope verification process. Then we have a project document update, of course, where there are any changes, then the corresponding documents, okay, should also be updated so that you don't have gaps between what was done and what was intended to be done. Then we have scope control. Scope control involves controlling changes to the project scope. It's very, very important. You want the project or the work on the project to be within the scope set for itself. So there should be a way of controlling the scope so that it doesn't get out of scope. Okay, the inputs to the scope control include project management plan, work performance information, requirements documentation, and the requirements traceability matrix. So these are very important inputs to the scope control process. Okay, so there should be a project management plan, which of course we've spoken about earlier. Then there should be a work performance information. So as the project unfolds, any information that needs to be gathered should be gathered, and should be gathered following whatever methodology has been agreed upon. And again, requirement documentation. Remember, we discussed this during the requirement collection process. And the requirements traceability matrix, very important. So these are the inputs to scope control under the scope control process. And the main tool for performing the scope control is variance analysis. So that is, you look at how whatever was original, okay, or whatever the planned scope is, and how the actual scope is varying or it's deviating from the planned scope. And so if there are any changes or variations that are not within the threshold that's wanted, then of course some action should be taken. So the output of the scope control include work performance measurements, organizational process assets updates, here again change requests, project management plan updates, and project document updates. So these are the outputs of the scope control. So that means after the scope control, you should have had some performance measurements. Okay, and of course there could also be updates to any process, organizational process assets in the organization. There could be change requests here again, and depending on the results of the variance analysis, there could be updates to the project management plan and the project document updates. In summary, project scope management is the process of defining what is required and making sure all that work and any of that work is done. Now, to collect requirements, there's a need to know who the stakeholders are. The project manager needs to choose the requirements, collection techniques that are most appropriate for the project and the stakeholders. Good scope definition is very important to project success. Scope verification involves reviewing deliverables with the customer or sponsor to ensure that they are completed satisfactorily, and obtaining formal acceptance of deliverables by the customer or sponsor. And scope control involves controlling changes to the project scope.